Hello everybody, we are here today and we are going to be previewing the 2023 Ottawa Redblacks and talk about what their season could be. Before we start though, please make sure to subscribe to me if you're new to me. If not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So the first thing is, can the new coordinators get the job done? So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, you have Ottawa right now. They brought in two, again, new coordinators in Kahari Jones and Baron Miles. Jones will be the offensive coordinator this year for the Redblacks, and then Miles will, of course, be the defensive coordinator. And this could be really good news for them. You look at what Jones has been able to do in the CFL. He's been a coach in one way or the other for multiple CFL teams, Hamilton, BC, Montreal, and of course has been an offensive coordinator multiple times and has been a head coach for the Alouettes before being fired last year, released, however you want to put it. But he has experience. As for Miles, he has been a guy that was a defensive coordinator in Montreal as well. And he has been a defensive back coach in multiple other teams. I believe Edmonton and Saskatchewan too. So that's good. You have two guys right there that have a lot of experience, and then you have two guys that have worked together in an environment where they were both at the top of the league, and they were in a situation where Montreal, while not a Grey Cup favorite every year, were a team that was winning and making the playoffs, which I think is big. And I look at this team, Ottawa's eighth in points per game last year on offense. That's a problem. And then the defense allowed the 7th most points per game, or points allowed per game in the league. That's also a problem too. I know some things are situational. You can score when the offense isn't out on the field. You can allow points when the defense isn't out on the field. But clearly they were bottom feeders in these categories last year. They bring in two experienced coaches that hopefully can fix some things right away with Jones. Again, a guy that just has been there, done that in multiple facets, and might be able to really get this offense trending in the right direction, as it has had some issues over the past few years. The defense, I do think maybe some of their struggles could be attributed to the offense, especially having to go back out on the field, but we will see, and I'm curious to see what happens there. But especially too with Bob Dice, the head coach, being the now current head coach after being an interim coach last year for the Redblacks. He's pretty new to the head coaching experience and has been more of an assistant coach, having a guy like Kahari Jones right there to help him along the way, if he'll even need it, because again, Dice does seem to be a pretty smart head coach, will be just an asset. Plenty of assets to have out there, and to have a locker room where it's more a team, a family, a unit, where you can talk to each other instead of having a hierarchy, which I think is good. So I do think we're going to get to see a lot talked about these two. The second thing is here, can this team shake off some of the setbacks that they're already facing? Ottawa seems to have the worst luck right now when it comes to what they're dealing with before the start of the season compared to what some other teams are having to deal with. They lost defensive back Money Hunter. He led the team in 4 interceptions last year and was expected to be a good part of this defensive back. And it was going to be something where maybe he could come in and help some other guys too. After having, again, a career-high year for interceptions. I believe he was an East All-Star last year. He's out after tearing a pectoral muscle or injuring it. He's going to be out for the foreseeable future, and it's not exactly sure if there is a timeline on his return. Then you have Shaq Evans, a guy they brought in from Saskatchewan. He ended up breaking his finger, I want to say, in a preseason game against Montreal. He's expected to miss 8 to 12 weeks. That's unfortunate. Lamar Durant ended up retiring after, kind of having some quiet years, but he was a really good asset for the Lions. Pretty sure that he had a really, really good year, especially by national depth standards, where he had 800, 900 yards with the Lions back in 2019, and so that's unfortunate. And now the news that I saw just before I started recording this, Jeremiah Masoli being out for the first 2 weeks of the season. That is not anything to scoff at. You have a defensive back out that was an East All-Star last year. You have a receiver that in Shaq Evans had an incredible 2019 season, and Durant is a guy too that really could have been great for them if he just had gotten another chance and had another go-around. Losing your starting quarterback, I don't know. This is going to be one of those things where they have to just deal with the punches early and often, and it seems like that's what they're doing right now, and they're letting it just roll off their back, because you can't really make excuses, especially in the professional market. But they are in a spot right now where we get to see, can they handle some of the bad luck, if you want to call it, that they've been going through now. And I think that they are better suited to, but it kind of ties into my last point that we're going to talk about here. So the third talking point here is whether or not the Ottawa Redblacks' success is tied to Jeremiah Masoli being there and being healthy and playing well. I'm going to say that this is going to be something you have to keep an eye on just because of the fact they started out with hopes that were pretty high last year, and then Mazzoli ends up going down after the Garrett Marino incident and Saskatchewan, and then things just go poorly. They end up finishing out the year 4-14, another bad year for them. This year, I don't think people expect him to be 4-14. And I think last year people didn't expect him to be 4-14, even if he went down with an injury. They were hoping he wouldn't, but the situation was the situation. And again, now you're dealing with injuries. This team struggled with QB player last year too, with alternations between Caleb Evans and Nick Arbuckle primarily. That was a problem. Will this be the case this year? I don't know, because you look and you see that Mazzoli is going to be injured to start off the year, but maybe he has a bad year. You really don't know. And I think too, with the Redblacks, they have maybe catered this offense a little bit more to what Mazzoli could do compared to what Arbuckle could do. I don't think Mazzoli has any reservations about really airing the ball out, and I think he's okay with, taking some of those risky chances because, it works and it's fun to watch him play. Whereas Arbuckle, he might take a few deep shots in the game, but I do think he's kind of been labeled with that tag of game manager in a way for a reason, because some of his stat lines do look, more of a game manager stat line, and there are some games where you say, wow, if we could have just had some deep shots there, that's going to be something to watch out for. I'm going to say in reality here, though, as bitter as it could be, I do think that the Redblacks' success is probably going to be tied to Mazzoli's health. As much as I like Nick Arbuckle as a quarterback, I look at what Mazzoli can do when he's out on the field and healthy, and I do think that at this point still that Jeremiah is the better quarterback over Nick Arbuckle, and if he's out considerably for a long time, that we will probably get a good chance to see what Arbuckle can do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to go well. So yes, I do think Ottawa's success will be tied to what Jeremiah Mazzoli can do. As for my final thoughts, I really feel like Ottawa's in a situation where they should be a better team this year compared to last year. I think that while last year they were really hopeful, they really just had a tough schedule to start out the season with that injury. It was like a gut punch. Things continued to go poorly. They ended up letting go of Paul LaPolice and just kept going where things were bad. Now you know that Mazzoli's out, and while that stings, this is more time that the guys have had with Arbuckle there and just more talent that they've been able to bring in. But again, tied to this, Mazzoli being out there more often than not is probably going to mean that they win more games. Regardless, though, I do look at this team. They got Javon Santos-Knox on the defensive end. They brought in some talent, and whether or not you think it's going to be good, they have Dante Bull. I don't know when he'll be healthy because he did have that leg injury in college that people are talking about, but they did add some stuff on the offensive line. They ended up drafting Paleos last year, and they got an offensive lineman. I'm blanking on his name right now. Played for Winnipeg. I'll remember it right after I get out this video, but they brought him in too, so that could be good. That being said, what exactly are my expectations for the Redblacks? Personally, I think that if Mazzoli is only out for 3 or 4 games this year, they should have a good chance to compete for a top 3 spot out east, maybe even a top 2 spot. I do think Hamilton is probably that team that you would say is the favorite to win the regular season division title, but I also think that Ottawa is in a situation where Montreal, on paper for the rest of the season, probably isn't going to be towards the top, and then Toronto, it really depends on what Chad Kelly can do. So we will see. I think Ottawa could have their best season since 2018, but I don't know. Again, it depends on quite a few things, but really, again, on Mazzoli. But what are your thoughts? Do you think this team is better suited to handle Mazzoli being out? Do you think that I'm just causing more problems with this, saying that he is so crucial to team success? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody also check out my other playlist, or my playlist with the other previews on there. I'll leave that at the end of the video. Anyway, everybody stay safe and have a great night.